This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 833, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you. Hello, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 833. My name is Connor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh A. Flanagan.
Josh A. Flanagan doesn't sound good, but Joshua? No, it doesn't. You're right. I don't like it with the initial. It says Joshua
like
Adam Flanagan. That's the only way it works.
Joshua Adam Flanagan. That's how we'll refer to you from now on.
Sure, go ahead. It'll just feel like you're my mom and you're mad at me all the time.
Well, that's true.
Is that a real thing? Like, did you ever get called by your full name when your mom was mad? Because I definitely did.
I don't think so. I certainly got in trouble a lot, but I don't think I ever got the 3-name call.
I didn't picture you getting in trouble a lot.
I did. You know, testing boundaries when you're kids. That was me.
Not me. I was very well behaved.
No, I was not. We are a fanboy. I mean, not badly, but just, we are a fanboy. Every week we read comics they put out. We have no control over those comics. We don't put the comics out. We just read them. So we have no choice. They hand us the comics. We read them. That's how we pick the best of the week. We call it the pick of the week. We'll talk about those books. We'll talk about the patron pick and maybe some listener mail. And here's your spoiler warning. This is a review show. Do the math. This week, Josh, you had the pick. Joshua Adam Flanagan had the pick.
Good job.
Listen, it's been a long week.
The pick of the week, life. The pick of the week is Amazing Spider-Man number 897, or if Marvel would like you to believe, 3.
It's weird that they rebooted it so close to 900, isn't it?
I'm. You know what? Let's look though. 2 issues, 3. Yeah, we'll see what they do. They are having cake and they're eating it all day long. It's just a big cake fest over there. So it was a light week. I didn't think it was a bad week. I really enjoyed some of the comics I read quite a lot, but I did know that there wasn't an oh yeah moment where I was like, that's the thing. I had to really think about what I would assign the pick of the week to. And it really could have been a lot of things that we were talking about this week, but because there were, I thought, a lot of strong, enjoyable issues, but nothing that really we hadn't talked about before or been through. But what I ended up coming back to was Amazing Spider-Man for a couple of reasons. One is that I really enjoyed the issue, and coming into it, I couldn't remember if I was liking this iteration or not. I've taken a little while to sort of figure out, wait, so since the Ben Reilly stuff, do I want to keep reading this? And I remember that the first issue was sort of we'd done some sort of time jump, and it wasn't very clear how far or how much things have changed or why, and that's the mystery, and that's all on purpose. It's not that they'd screwed up, but I wasn't sure if I was enjoying it. And with this issue, basically Tombstone has decided, fuck all this. He's going to go back to being a real bad dude, and he kind of told his origin story and his justification in this whole speech about what is good and what is bad, and who are and it was good. It was really well written and compelling. It wasn't particularly amazingly original, but it was very tense. And you had this stuff where he's beating up Peter Parker and Peter's still cracking wise, and because you've been through this a million times, he's going to be fine. He's going to fight his way out of it. But really, as it went on, actual tension built. We know it's a monthly comic book and things are going to go back to where, but as a simulacrum of actual dramatic tension, I thought it was done really well. And somewhere in the middle of that also was the idea that I was looking at John Romita's work, and I just thought, this is great.
Yeah, it's really good.
This is high quality John Romita, and I think it has a lot to do with the kind of script he gets and what he gets to put in it, but also who's inking him. I think that matters a lot. This is Scott Hanna. Scott Hanna is a long-time John Romita Jr. inker, but I really was, as I looked at this issue, I was like, oh, he's not missing a step here. It really had all that drama. It was clean where it needed to be. It was energetic where it needed to be, and it just, I thought, oh, when I think of John Romita Jr., this is exactly what I think of, and that made me really happy. I just the comic book looked exactly like a Spider-Man comic from, 20, 25 years ago, where I thought that was like the best looking thing, and it still is. And not in a way that like a lot of times we will come on the show and we will talk about how a comic book feels like it was an older comic book, and that's why we liked it. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the craft and the skill and everything was like, it's right on par with where it needs to be. And I get excited when I see John Romita on a book, but it doesn't always come through for whatever reason. This time I thought, the bloody sort of Spider-Man and the I don't know, like their big images in the panels. It's just exactly what you want it to be.
Yeah, it looks good. That scene where he's beating up Peter was bloody intense, but it didn't make me squirm nearly as much as the idea of child Tombstone chiseling his teeth, or not sawing. What was
It's a chisel.
Yeah, filing his teeth into points. That is making my skin crawl even now just thinking about it. Like I had a very visceral reaction to this book. Like, oh God! Just I can feel.
Yeah,
I can hear the sound and the rubbing, and it's just terrible. It's all terrible, in a good way. I like the fact that Mary Jane has moved on from Peter Parker to be dating the lead singer of Color Me Bad. I think that is a good choice for her. It's an upgrade. So
I believe that guy works at a tire store.
This was great. I think you're 100% right about the art. For Romita needs to have the right script. We talked a long time ago when he was doing Avengers with Bendis, and you disliked it more than I did. But Bendis is a talky writer. There's a lot of talking in here, but it's written in such a way in which it allows for big, impactful panels, and that's really where Romita sings, is with these big panels. And I think really good work.
I think he does better with single characters than teams. And I remember in that Avengers run, there would be like group shots, and like he just didn't know what to do with all the people. But when you've got this sort of intent, because they were like, I was like, do they have risers in there? I remember like a page where I was like, yeah, and with this, it's a couple of people, having drama. There's a group of people standing behind Tombstone, but it's never overcrowded too much. He gets to sort of, stage direct it, and it's not about seeing how you can fit all this stuff in. I like that after an admittedly sort of strange sequence and an issue where Tombstone and Robbie Robertson?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I just was like, that is also the guy from the band. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That he's like, no, I'm going to kill him for messing with my daughter. And I was like, that's more what it's supposed to be like. But again, it's threat, it's menace, threats and menaces. It really had that, like, time is ticking.
Like you said in the beginning, like, we know Peter's going to live through this. He's going to be fine. But even so, you have to be able to, like, lose yourself in the moment. And in the moment, it felt very desperate for Peter. Like he's screaming, I've learned my lesson. I mean,
really what sealed it for me was that sort of last page. Super tense, and I was like, oh! So that's why it's a pick of the week.
Yeah, and it was visceral, Yeah. That's the thing. In order to survive in this game, in the comics reading and reviewing game, you have to be able to put aside what you know to be true, which is nothing will change, and really just live in the moment of the story. And in the moment of the story, you're like, oh shit, Peter's in big trouble.
But that is up to the creators. Like, if they can create that feeling, then that means that they've succeeded. And right. I think that's where my credit to them goes right now, is that they got me. They fooled me. They made me forget about the man behind the curtain. I was in it, and that's not a small thing you do with just an amazing Spider-Man fight between Tombstone and Spider-Man. Like, that should be like, I've seen this a million times, but it was done really well. So they got me.
Besides, in the back of Peter's mind, he's got all that medical debt, and now he's going to get more because he's getting his ass kicked. Like, it's just a no-win spiral for him. And
he just knows. He knows all these very rich people who know him.
Like his rich ex-girlfriend is now dating Color Me Bad. She can't pay his bills.
No, I'm not putting the music in this show.
See, if I was editing, I would.
I know you would.
It's your decision. It's your decision.
Yeah.
Everyone will be disappointed, but that's fine. Disappoint the people. Thor 752. This is part 4 of Banner of War, the Thor Hulk Donny Cates crossover, and it's just so weird.
So,
and I don't know how I feel about it.
My comment on it would be this. Last time we talked about it, I was like, I'm really confused. I'm not sure what it is. This time, I was like, all right, fuck it. Yeah. I mean, really, it was a big Hulk Thor fight, and Iron Man's there for some reason, and there's various mechanics and physics at work that I don't fully understand. But I think that it was really fun because it just kept getting worse. And then, you're like, we've got him. And then Thor Hulk would get really mad and blow things up. And he was talking in dumb Hulk voice. And I just thought, I don't need to understand why. I'm just going to go with this. And I think, which is, by the way, this is Donny Cates' strength. He can do the part where he explains what's going on or whatever. But there is an element to him which is just like, what if we just have these big dudes have a big fight? And then something happens at the end and everybody's freaked out. And I took it. The idea was, there's a lot, but basically looks like Banner convinced Odin, who is the hammer, to make actual Hulk worthy to stop Hulk Thor from destroying the world. All right, go for it.
Yeah, so if you haven't been reading this, in the last issue, there was a gamma bomb explosion, and now Thor is also Hulk, so they're both big, green, angry, dumb bruisers. And he's wearing the costume. He's got the long blonde hair, but he's Thor Hulk.
But Doc Samson's hair turned green. This must be an Asgard.
You never really know how gamma's going to affect
That's true.
you.
It really depends on the needs of the story.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of big dudes punching each other. And then at the end, Thor picks up the hammer and smashes it down and becomes Hulk Thor. So there's Thor Hulk and Hulk Thor. And,
Hulk picks up the hammer.
Right, Hulk picks it up and becomes Hulk Thor.
Right.
Thor Hulk and Hulk Thor.
Okay, I'm with you.
So, and then the Bifrost gets destroyed again. Because I feel like every
That's true.
10 issues it gets destroyed.
I was like, that did happen already. I'm positive.
So, it's just weird. I don't hate it, but I'm just like, okay, we're just gonna do this, and that's fine.
As soon as I let it go, and I just appreciated, that first page, angry Hulk Thor, huge fist in the foreground in the top right corner, huge knee in the foreground of the bottom left corner, crackling with energy. All right. Because they didn't try to explain it to me. There wasn't much about, I got to get to the engine room of the Hulk, which doesn't make sense at all.
No, I really don't like that concept. That's been my biggest problem.
But that wasn't really in here. It was just like Banner and Odin being like, this is kind of fucked up, and Iron Man was there. I'm not entirely sure why. Just to have it moved really fast. I mean, this wasn't pick of the week, but fine. You've delivered on the visuals at the very least of the thing that I want out of this.
And the issue ends with Hulk Thor swinging Mjolnir and Thor Hulk swinging his fist, and they collide, and then the planet explodes from the shockwave. So fine,
yeah,
that's fine.
That's right.
How much do you think? And this issue is drawn by Martin Coccolo, which was good job of big action battle scenes. How much do you think the artists hate drawing this new Mjolnir with the random cracks in it? Because it's going to be different no matter how you draw it.
I see. In terms of consistency. Now I want to look and see if there's consistency. I bet there's like some sort of like paint program they have that lets you do that.
I'm sure there's a style guide for it, but like, man, that sucks.
There is. It's the same. If you look on page...
Actually, it's different. Look at page 17 versus page 19. In 17, the little button at the top has cracks in it, and on 19 it doesn't.
I was looking at the lines on the hammer. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it's constantly. There we go. It's comic book logic. It's constantly reforming itself as it heals itself.
It's pin particles,
and the energy pulls itself back together, and it cracks again. It's moving. It's like the Earth's crust. because it is so full of energy.
Pym particles.
That too. Unstable Pyms.
That's when all this ends, we're going to find that Marvel was all Pym particles all along.
616.
The Pym particles were inside of us.
616 is the atomic number of Pym particles.
I mean, it's just dumb fun. But then, like, I saw the next issue because this concludes the next issue of Hulk. And the next issue of Thor is Thor and Venom, and so it's like, okay, well, are we just going to do all of Donny Cates' characters?
That's what they all do.
That's all we're going to do.
That's what they all do. Like, that's what Remender did all the time. That's what Bendis did. He was like, here's Spider-Woman and everything. Deal with it. By the way, I really like that drawing of Thor with the big, thick ankles and legs on the cover of the next.
Nick Klein.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
That's a really nice drafting. Yeah, so I expect nothing of the issue that comes after it. I didn't really think of the one that came before it, but I was like, well, I'm reading Thor, and I was like, all right, I can take this. This is a burger. We're gonna eat it. We're probably gonna be hungry later. Fine.
Speaking of Color Me Bad, we're now in a new arc for That Texas Blood, which takes place in 1992. This is called The Snow Falls Endlessly in Wonderland. The Patty Doyle and the Bad Blizzard of 92. I really like this book. We know we talked about it a lot, and we keep saying we really like it. But this was a strong kickoff. It had they even talk about it in the back essay, but the slasher opening where Patty Doyle is this young girl who's returned from hometown girl who went to California, got her law license at UCLA, came home to whatever small town. I forgot the name of the town, but came back.
Blood. You're in Blood, Texas. This is why it's that.
Use her skills to help the people of her small town, her law skills to help the people of the small town. And unfortunately, she is killed by a slasher in the opening sequence
and then
her house. It was a creepy.
And then posed.
Creepy sequence.
It totally was a creepy sequence. I got behind on this series, and I let a few of the last issues pile up. And for some reason, I wasn't enjoying the beginning of that last arc with the cult. But I ended up reading all of them at once one of these light weeks, and I was totally hooked. And by the end of it, I was like, this is super enjoyable. So I was caught up again when this one came out, and I was like, ooh, new arc. Great place to start over. They switched genre to a certain extent. I got myself oriented. You really only got to remember the one sheriff guy. There's a bunch of other people, but as long as I can sort of pinpoint who the sheriff is, I'm good. And then you sort of start over from there. And yeah, I mean, it's basically the point why I put this in the script. I was like, I think this book is still much better than you would suspect for longer than you would think. And I know Jacob Phillips is son of Sean Phillips. This is unmistakable. But not in a bad way. It's just like, that's how Dad did it. That's how I'm gonna do it.
But it's also slightly different. I mean, he's got a slightly different style. It's in the same genre as his dad's art, but it's slightly different.
I also feel like I've been looking at his art more than Sean Phillips for the past couple of years, so I've lost track.
Well, that's because you haven't been reading the Reckless books.
Not on purpose.
They've been doing those OGNs. I've read 4 of them in the last year, so I've seen a lot of Sean Phillips.
And yeah.
So we're back in the past. So the sheriff, I don't know names. It's just the sheriff. He is running for a re-election after I think he was installed as sheriff when the other sheriff got killed. So this is like his first election bid, and it's getting ugly. So we've got sort of the politics of sheriff electioneering, and then also a slasher is in town and has just cut the head of Patty Doyle off and put it on her lap. So
what year did
I thought this was solid.
What year did the Scream movie come out? Because this is very.
We were in college.
Okay,
I think I was living in the Circle apartments. Right, so I think that was junior year.
It was after 92. This is apparently this
is
the
This
is the influence. This is what gave him the idea for Scream.
I believe it was 97.
Okay, Kevin Williamson.
98.
Postmodern.
97.
All right, fair enough.
97.
But either way, it's funny because I don't remember if I've seen Chris Condon's name on anything else. Because you would think by now somebody like, hey, this book's really good. Usually 14 issues into sales, notwithstanding, a well done image series like this. I figured you'd have a Black Label book by now. But just doing this.
Right. In the old days, he would have had a Vertigo book. by now.
Yes, he would have. And then for a little while, they would have given him Fantastic Four by now. There was a little period in the 2000s where if you did anything, they were like, here's the big ship, have fun, you know.
Yeah. But this was, if you have not read that Texas Blood and you're all interested in crime, and this has got a tinge of slasher horror, but it's still mostly a crime book. This is a great place to jump on. It's issue 14. It's this new arc, takes place in the past. That's what the great thing about these arcs are. They all are pretty much self-contained. They it takes place in the same county, Ambrose County, and the same sheriff is always in the middle of the story somehow. But you can read any of these arcs on their own.
This could be an issue 1.
And this is a great place to start if you have not checked it out.
And it's
creepy imagery on the killer.
And I guess another thing is that like there's times where you're like, is this gonna get supernatural? Which has happened a bunch in this series, but it never does.
Yeah.
Because there's like part of it I think is this feeling that the people who live out there kind of believe in the supernatural. So there's things that keep making, like the last one was about a cult and like the elder gods and whatever. But in most comics, then that god would show up and whatever. But it isn't. They were nuts. And this has a slasher. He's not a demon. He's not. But it's that idea. Like, could this be that? And it isn't. It's just a straight up. This is a bad place to live. Clearly, where things go bad. But it's straight up reality.
I have to say that page 9 on my digital reader, where the killing takes place in the reflection of the TV, was some smart comic book creating. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Sean Phillips is as good of a storyteller as there is in comics. He is. Mm-hmm. He if you look back, I remember like he's one of the first guys that I want to say when I was reading Sleeper that I was sort of starting to understand storytelling, and I thought, oh, this guy's really good at telling a story, and it seems like Jacob Phillips has really learned. It's not like it's not like nepotism in the film industry where you can become an executive and you have to do the work in comics, and also it's not really the same reward. You're like this. You want to follow my footsteps. You want to use my name so you can get behind this drawing board for 14 hours of your life and say you have health problems and no savings.
Get a bad back and bad shoulders and bad wrists, and
but he. He respects the family business. He goes into the penciling mines, and he does the work, and he does it.
True.
There's none of like I don't know how old he is. Christ, he probably could be 40 by now. But I don't know. There's none. I sense no new artist from him. I sense like he works like a veteran, and that's really great.
So, Josh, are you aware? I know you keep up to date with the new podcasting laws, but are you aware of any podcast lemon laws? My lawyers are looking into it, and they're going to contact your lawyers because you reviewed Dogs of London #1 from Aftershock a few episodes ago, and said, "Hey, this was just a straight up crime book set in the '60s London." And I said, "That's cool." So I read 1 and 2 this week, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on with this supernatural bullshit?"
That was not clear in the first issue. And then
except for the fact that his cronies from the 60s were turned up in 2012 alive and young.
I think I might have said it mostly feels like
that was the last page.
Yeah, it's fine. I miss a lot of things.
My people are going to talk to your people. And
I'm fine with that.
We're going to work out a cash settlement.
That's fine. You can have all of my profits from that issue or that episode. They're all yours.
Not that this is bad. Like,
yeah,
that's what my thinking was. Wait a minute, but I did enjoy the 2 issues. However, the problems that you noted when you talked about the issue were things I also noted, which is you've got a story, and it's less so in the second issue because we're basically all in the present day. But in the first issue, at least, it was like, here are 7 brunette guys in black suits, and I was like, I don't know who any of these people are. And they keep saying names, and I don't know how I should feel about the names.
Told me that's Barty. That's okay.
It's different when they're actors. Like you can imprint on an actor's face, but when it's 4 characters drawn basically the same, one guy's face is a little fatter than the other guy's. It's like I don't know who Danny is versus any of these other dudes.
I think we're burying the lead here, which is I was reading the book, and I got to page 9, and I'm going to just go ahead and read this quote. Now then to business. I'm Professor Hartman. Thanks to Herr Hitler, eugenics has required a rather bad name. And yes, it does have some
God, yeah.
beastly undertones, but among all the dubious science remain some nuggets of genetic truth. And as he does that to a group of boys they pulled out of the juvenile hall home or whatever they call it in England, and he has a pair of calipers to measure their heads.
Yeah.
I went, oh no. It's not often that they
That's bad.
use the word eugenics. I went, oh.
The thing is, like, things are bad enough when you get sent to what in America is called juvie, but it's worse when then you get pulled out of general population, brought to the doctor's office, and he starts talking about Hitler and eugenics.
He
and
says,
you're like, oh, it's gotten
he
worse.
says Herr Hitler, which is like a sign of respect. And you're like, ooh, that's like he's acknowledging that Hitler is bad for public relations. He can admit that much, but also there's a tone of, but let's hold on and listen to what he has to say, though. And he's measuring their heads.
It's just bad. It's all bad.
I love, there's a thing that lives in the heads of British writers from World War II that Americans will never be able to do. Because it was so much more present there. And like, if you're Pete Milligan, like he's not old enough, I don't think, to have been alive, but his parents probably were. And they just, just you know, this eugenics thing, this almost happened.
So the main story, in case you didn't hear the review or you blacked out during, is that there's these 60s gangsters in London who some of them didn't survive the era, and then one or two of them survived and sort of went straight and became businessmen. And
he was knighted.
We spent the first so we spent the first issue sort of seeing them in the 60s, and then at the very end we jumped to the present day, and then the main guy has gotten knighted here, and so he's like a big successful businessman. He lives in a 13 million pound house, and his old enforcer buddy lives in Spain with like a 24-year-old girlfriend, and life is good, except for the fact that all of their old dead cronies have now shown up, and in their bodies are back. They haven't woken up yet, but then they're in this like scientific lab being tested, and then so the old enforcer blows the lab up, which I thought was funny. He's like, I told you just to get rid of the bodies.
The older version of that guy, I could tell who he was, and also I can picture exactly who he was. Sexy Beast. Like I was like, it's that guy. That's
Ray Winstone.
That's it. Yeah, I was like, that's him. Great, I've cast it.
And then the bodies have survived the explosion and the fire, and now they're awake and their eyes are glowing. So there's some nonsense.
That's not
there,
supernatural, though. Eugenics has never been tested.
That's right. This is a dangerous road.
Just science
to go down for a bit that people may not understand as a bit.
I don't think most people know what eugenics is anymore, and they don't know that it's very funny to make these awful jokes about an awful, awful thing.
I have to be fair. The art from Artacida. Yeah, Artacida. Not great.
Not great, but correct in tone.
It gets the job done.
Like he gets the 60s.
It fits the story.
The 60s London thing. Like he's got that art design feel. I think he gets, like where they are, but the people.
It's just a little stiff.
Yep.
The body language is just a little unnatural. Not incredibly dynamic, but it gets the job done. I've certainly seen worse. It's just I wish it had a more fluid artist who didn't make everyone seem really unnaturally stiff all the time. But that's fine.
Yeah, like
Aftershock.
Like with a broad brush, like a 2000 AD type artist, somebody in the like one of the guys that Vertigo or two. Yeah.
Hell, if Russ Braun drew this book, we'd be flying.
You're right. Yep, absolutely.
But I'm still going to read it, mostly because I have a subscription on Comixology, and with the new system, I don't know how to turn it off.
That can get expensive.
So I'm sure there's a way, and this is not me asking people listening to tell me, but because that was more of a joke. But I'm going to keep reading it. But I really don't know how to turn it off. It's a joke based on truth.
Do not give me unsolicited advice. That is
I'm curious to see what's going on. I did enjoy it, but I did also go, wait a minute, I thought this was a 60s British crime book.
I think I sold it it's interesting. It's not like other things. It isn't great, but it isn't. It's not great, but it's different enough from everything else that it's at least novel in a sense.
My plan this morning was to go back to that show and pull some quotes out and throw them back in your face. But then I was like, I don't care.
Here's the thing. I'm not a good reader. I'm distracted. I miss details and stuff. I focus on the things that don't necessarily tell me what the plot is. Like
Sure.
I'm not good. I'm not a good reader.
That's going to be your court defense, and we'll see how that goes. It depends on what judge we get.
Wait a minute. Like, what kind of damages are we talking about? I'm pretty sure we can work this out. I'll send you a Starbucks card or something. Are you looking for like pain and suffering damages? All right, so I know that I'm in for.
I mean, I have some punitive.
All right, I'm in for $8 for the books to start.
My lawyers are going to take 5 of those $8.
That's your problem. That has nothing to do with me. I mean, you know what? Yeah. That's fine. I'll cover the lawyer fees of the 5. So I'm in for 13. You want profits from the show? You want my portion of that? Done.
From that 5 minutes of the show.
We're 13.25. And you know what? I'm going to round it up to an even 20. Are we good?
All right. Thank you. I'll take it. That's fine. We can.
The U.S. court system thanks you. Wait, are you taking me to court and split it in 2?
This is actually a perfect moment to talk about what we're about to talk about, because Josh now owes me money. So let's talk about how you can help support the show and therefore help Josh pay off his debt to me. Patreon.com/iFanboy is the best way to do that. We know that the world is difficult and it always seems terrible. You turn the news on and every story is bad. But, you know, we hope that this show is like a 1 hour of fun in your week. It's 1 hour of fun for our week. We were talking before the show about how awful everything was, but we were so excited to talk about comics because it's a respite.
I'm telling you,
I put these headphones on. I don't hear anything else in the world. It's
3 or 4 minutes ago, we were talking about stuff and laughing, and I was like, oh, thank God for this. Literally, I appreciated it as it was happening. It's just for us right now, but I hope some of that leaks out to you.
Yeah, so even if you feel like this is a good value for you and enjoy your week, then consider being a patron. You don't have to be a $20 a month patron. You don't have to be even a $5 a month patron. You can just be a $1 a month patron, and that would be fine too if you feel like that's worth it. And also, look, it's terrible and inflation's bad. So if you can't do it, if you can't swing it, that's also fine too.
Wait, do I have to pay for gas in any way in this lawsuit? Because I can't afford that.
Yeah, you got to cover my gas costs.
Wait a minute, you have an electric car, you son of a bitch.
We wanted to give you a quick Media Explode update. Right now, we're back over the threshold, so it's probably pretty safe that it will be a Media Explode this month. So we'll keep an eye on that. And I know we keep saying we're going to rejigger the stretch goals, and I have a note. Literally, I have a note here on my desk saying patron goals to remind me to start looking at that. So it just hasn't happened yet. Life is busy. But we'll get to it.
What that means is that he's going to slack me at 10 a.m. on a Monday and be like, hey, can we redo these goals? I'm like, no, not now. And then I'll be too tired after.
What I'll probably do is send you a proposal, and then we'll work off that. That'll just be a starting point. Anyway, thank you for all your support, anyone who's a patron. iFanboy.threadless.com is where you can buy our T-shirts. We just had a Memorial Day sale. They like to do sales at Threadless around the holidays, so there'll probably be one and then the next holiday, maybe July 4th. So keep your eye on that if you haven't bought any shirts. It was a good sale. It was like 25% off or something like that, so keep your eye out for that. But we have great shirts, and I really enjoy them, and I wear them frequently. And I hope you do too. Thank you very much. If you bought a T-shirt, iFanboy.com/support is our digital tip jar via PayPal if you just want to throw a couple of bucks in the tip jar, and or if you are a billionaire who needs to hide money, and instead of like the IRS getting it, you decide you want to give it to us to talk about comics, then go for it. Also, iFanboy.com/Amazon is our link to buy our Booksplode books and just general shopping link, and bookshop.org is our partner for supporting local bookstores. We put those links in when appropriate. They apparently did not have any copies of Superman for All Seasons on there for sale, so you won't see that link in that post. But most other of our Booksplodes, you'll see the bookshop.org link. And it's a great way to support local bookstores. And all those ways you help support iFanboy are appreciated. We thank you. It keeps the show going and keeps Josh able to pay me off what he very rightfully owes me as in a court of law. We'll back
then
that
my
up.
team goes back into the archives and they find every instance of you saying the first issue of a book is good. and then it just goes into shit, and I can then go back and be like, 12 issues of this I paid for based on one. And then what happens is
prior actions are not relevant.
And then what happens is the listeners get in on it. And the feeding frenzy starts. Class action lawsuit. And everyone is just like, we started reading Immortal Hulk. And I don't know what happened, but somebody has to be responsible for this.
This is a dangerous road we've gone down. We've opened those doors up.
No.
We have to keep
we didn't. You did this.
No, I said against co-hosts. I didn't say
avarice.
This is your buyer beware situation. If you're listening to the show, caveat emptor. That's not even what I. Is that the same thing?
Self-righteous,
buyer beware,
moralistic, all-knowing. Your ego. This is
Keep
about.
Going. Let's get it all out. Get it all out.
Hold on, I'm going to redirect some anxiety.
25 years.
So let's say, for example, like we blow up at each other while recording a show. Do we put that show out?
Maybe. Depends on how entertaining it is. What's this book? I didn't read this book. The Ward Number 1.
Ward Number 1 is a book from Dark Horse Comics. It was a number 1 based on nothing else, and it was a light week, so I thought I will try this. It is about it's fantasy. There's creatures and whatnot. But what it is fables and ER mixed together. There
that's perfect
is
for
a
you.
woman, and she comes home, and she's talking about some shit in her past. We don't know what it is. And in the hallway, there is a man holding a woman who has been stabbed and is very bloody. And she knows something is going on, and she is forced to take the two of them, including the man, to a hospital that they have to drive through a brick wall to get to, and we see it, and there's creatures outside of it everywhere, and it is a magical ER, and the woman had quit, but now she is back. And then they have to make the man forget that he saw it, and there is a minotaur, and he's very angry, and they have to give him hard restraints, but they don't work because he's lost a horn. Did
he come into the ER with a loving wife?
No.
And we just know he's done
Turns
for.
out, I'm going to go ahead and spoil this, he's the one who stabbed the lady in the hallway. So they had to solve that mystery. So it's a bit of a crime procedural sort of thing going on there. It really is a straight-up hospital show / comic book.
Is the Minotaur being played by Krumholtz?
Listen, I can't have time to get into this. You sparked a lot of things. But I will tell you this. David Krumholtz is one of the great underappreciated actors of our time. Full stop. He's fantastic in everything, and it's always something different. Sorry.
In this book, did any sort of magical creature lose an arm due to helicopter accident?
No, but the Minotaur did lose one of his horns.
Okay. Did a helicopter
fall
on him?
But it's the first issue. You can't do that right away. You got to work up to it.
Well, I might check that out, actually.
It was okay. It was kind of unexpected. It really is just like a hospital procedural, and there's some drama going on. I was like, well, this is weird that this is coming to me right now when I'm headlong into season 9.
Is the best thing that we've ever done in these 22 years of iFanboy the ER opening on the video show?
No, it is the finest piece of technical editing that I ever did. I had to learn how to do a ton of stuff to be able to make the effects to make it look like at the Chicago Comic-Con episode, we did an ER opening, and I remember very specifically picturing it in my head, and then also like having everybody do things that I could shoot on camera to put in there, and at the time, no one wanted to do it. And it was like the most half-assed, like, all right, turn and look to camera, make a face, run this way like you... And everybody was like, oh, why? And nobody wanted to do it. And I was like, I've shot half of it. I need you to do the rest of this. And I pulled it together. And you guys supported me when it came out.
Sure.
Yeah. No, you're right. This is old school shit.
I realized when I read the script that you sent over that I read the first issue of The Lion and the Eagle, and I forgot it existed after that. So I have not read 2, 3, or 4. Yeah.
Wow. I missed 3, And so last night I had it. I actually had bought it, so it was there. I didn't want to miss it because I wanted to read the rest of it. So this is the final issue of this little 4-issue miniseries.
Is this the story with the caravan and the jungle?
Yeah. So it's basically.
Yeah, I need to go back.
It's
and get
largely
those issues. I really
about
liked that one issue.
The forgotten efforts of the British working with Indian Gurkha soldiers and I forget, Burmese, like sort of guerrilla troops, fending off the Japanese sort of outside of the normally understood theater of Pacific War. And this is also Aftershock Comics. Yeah. How did I miss this? I guess I didn't subscribe to it. Yeah, that's why. It's $8 an issue.
Yeah.
And
I'm buying them all now. And
I'm paying for that.
Yeah, you definitely will be paying for this. I'm gonna send you an invoice.
There's a thing where a bunch of people will walk around and you can sort of hear what they're talking about because they're basically stuck in this area, this remote outpost, and they have no supplies and things keep getting worse and worse and worse. And then every once in a while, an attack happens. When an attack happens, the pages go double page spread. The color of everything changes to the reddish orange thing, and it is incredibly overwrought and bloody and brutal. And finally, they get the orders to move out, and it really is like it's the main officer, sort of like, what was the point of all this? And it's not fantastic in a narrative sense, but it is incredibly thoughtful in they try to cover a lot of ground in an area that most people, including myself, up until relatively recently, didn't really know about or understand. And there's a bit like, why are the Indians fighting on the side of the British? And there's a sort of an officer major that is always with the main British officer that sort of talks about it because he's like the best soldier there is and he's incredibly loyal. And at one point in here he says something like, I'm not fighting for you, I'm fighting because it's, I'm supposed to, whatever, like it's really thoughtful
duty and honor
and interesting. It's not like there's war scenes that are really compelling and interesting, but there is another thing going on. There's sort of like reading a history book. Garth Ennis is trying to work this stuff out. He's trying to understand it, and we get to do that through him, through the work. And I mean, the whole thing was worth reading, but it is not like dashing war stories like you're going to be excited and thrilled by it. It's getting into stuff that almost doesn't belong in a comic book form, but because I'm hopelessly biased for this guy, I'll take whatever it is. Like, there's so many rules of mine that are broken in this book, which is like, these are just people walking around talking forever, but it doesn't matter because it's good. I remember really liking the first one. I just bought all three of 2 through 4, so I'll read those later. But I'm excited because I did like it, and P.J. Holden also is terrific, and that's the touchy thing about the Garth Ennis horror books is the art can be all over the map. And what P.J. Holden does is, and we were talking about this, like I pretty much knew who everybody was. I think it was pretty clear, and he was able to draw people who look different. He was able to draw different ethnicities and make them understood that that you knew. I mean, it sounds like it should be easy to do, but like he there's a characterization to the Burmese characters and the Indian characters and the British characters, and then among the British characters and among those other guys, and I think he gave them a lot of life. I can't remember the word for the Burmese guerrillas, but they're the most fascinating thing in the whole thing. It was pretty good.
That's cool. I'm glad you put this in script because I'd forgotten that book existed. Why didn't I subscribe to it? Afterschool #1 from Image. I took a flyer on this because I saw that Greg Hinkle drew it.
Same.
And I love Greg Hinkle's work. So you did read this? Okay, good. What's funny was I put this in the script. I sent it. That's how we do the show. Is you send me the list, and then I add books to it, depending on who has to pick. And I wrote it down, and then I thought, what happened in that book? Like, I know I wanted to talk about it, but I had completely forgotten everything about it other than Greg Hinkle's work. So this is a anthology series, apparently. I guess centered around school. The first issue here, written by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, are 2 filmmakers out of L.A., because if you're a filmmaker in L.A., you get a comic. And drawn by Greg Hinkle, as we said, who's terrific. This issue stories focuses on a young girl in high school who is, just getting by. She's got, all the high school problems. She's good at dissecting and things. She's got some skills there, but she's not got a lot of confidence. She likes a girl, but doesn't talk to her. And then one day her parents bring her a dog. And everything changes in her life. Her confidence level shoots through the roof. Her competence level, she's suddenly really good at everything. She's playing soccer well. She's doing schoolwork really well, and it's all because of this dog. And we find out the dog is, in fact, infected with an alien who has some sort of aura that affects her. My biggest concern here, and tell me if you thought the same thing, Josh. I thought this was a ghost dog because of the way it's colored.
Yep. Yeah.
It looked like a hologram.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. You noticed that it stood out, and I think that was a like an intention, but it didn't make sense. I thought the art is beautiful, but
the dog shows up. Yeah, it shows up, and the color is by Giovanna Nero. I'm not like blaming Giovanna Nero, but like they say, here we got you something to help you, and this dog shows up, and it's not colored the same way. Like there's no hard black lines in the dog, like the rest of the drawing. And so I thought, is this a hologram dog? Is this a ghost dog? Like it's colored in the same way they color Ghost Dog over in Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I thought, well, this dog is not real because it's being colored in a very purposeful and intentional way, differently than the rest of the people. Now maybe they were trying to say it was like, strange and supernatural and had an aura, but to me it just was confusing because I thought it was not a real dog. I thought maybe it was like was it in her head? Like I was trying to figure out why they were doing it this way the whole time, and it was distracting me.
I was extremely confused. Once I wasn't clear what happened until the very end, and even then I wasn't sure, and it was not. I don't know the point of the story. Do you know?
It wasn't super successful.
Do you know who those people are?
Well,
Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. Well, they were the co-showrunners of a little show called Moon Knight.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then they did a bunch of like small indie weird horror creepy movies or whatever.
I will say this. The single page shot of when she discovers the dog in the middle of the night having a cigarette and a coffee and watching TV in the kitchen made me laugh.
Yes.
Just the incongruity of it. And they said in their essay in the back that was the image they started with. Was a dog smoking a cigarette, drinking a coffee, watching TV.
It's really weird, though, that everything else around it. Like, to get from that image to all this weird, like, horror, spine-ripping stuff and guts, and they have to sacrifice a Great Dane to be the battery for some interdimensional point. Like, it was like, this is way too much. But, Yeah,
he had to, like... He's building a ship. This alien living inside the dog has to build a ship to get home, and the ship seems to be run on like entrails, and so they have to start cutting up. Like it got. I really liked all the high school stuff. Like I thought she was interesting, and then she finally talks to the girl at a party, and like I thought the confidence that was brought on by the dog to change her life was interesting, and then it got into bloody gore. And I was like, I'm not interested in any of this.
I think Hinkle did a fucking hell of a job, though, visualizing what must have been some weird-ass ideas in a script. I mean, really quality work in that way.
I mean, that was the only reason why I read this.
Same.
I thought, well, at least it'll look good. Well, not that I didn't know. I just didn't know. I had no idea what it was when I started reading it, but at least it would look good. He's not drawing the whole thing. It's totally different team.
Yeah,
for
so the next one is unrelated. So that the cliffhanger at the end is the end.
The next one is written by one of the people behind Marvel Studios is Loki. So apparently all the people from the Disney Plus TV shows got an anthology.
Then they're all going to find out that they don't get paid by Image. Wait, we get paid after? Yes. Oh.
So let's talk about the Patron Pick. Patreon.com/iFanboy. All the patrons can vote to add a book to the rundown. And this week, the overwhelming favorite was Aquaman, Andromeda, book 1 from Black Label, written by Ram V, drawn by Christian Ward, and letters by Aditya Bidikar. And I was not going to read this.
Yeah, I was. If the point of the Patron Pick was to get us to read something that neither of us would have normally read, that was a success because that did happen.
So I love Aquaman. He's one of my sneaky favorite characters. When I was a kid, he was up there with Batman for a while. I don't know why. I think I just wanted to be blonde because all the heroes in TV movies were blonde. But
that's right,
you,
buddy.
But it's another grievance I have against you. But I've always liked Aquaman, and so normally you think Aquaman, Black Label book, Connor's all over that. But I've tried several Ram V books.
Many.
He's a writer with a lot of heat on his name. He came up through doing stuff like with Vault and Now he's been doing a lot of DC work. I've read probably 5 or 6, giving them a try, and I have not liked any of them. And this issue sort of encapsulated a lot of the reasons why I just don't respond to his work. And this was a slog to get through.
It was super serious. And so it's this like really heavy metaphor, deep, metaphysical thinking about the deep and the earth and humanity.
And water.
And it just went on and on forever. And it was not fun. There was nothing funny about it. There's a couple of bits where like one of their characters being sarcastic for a second. I was like, is this what they think is fun? But it was like it was trying to show me this deep truth through an Aquaman story. And I was like, I'm not buying it. Like, I wasn't, it was a slog. Like, I wasn't like, this is terrible. It wasn't like badly constructed. The writing wasn't, but it just seemed like way more intense and serious than it had any right to be. Entirely unironic seriousness, and I just thought this level of drama and pretense, it's just completely misplaced.
There were whole sequences in the book where people didn't talk in dialogue; they talked in like long monologues about the nature of the world.
Yes,
and I was like, oh my god. There was a section in the middle where this underwater boat gets attacked by what may be a kraken that I thought was fun and well done, but the rest of it was just sort of like ponderous and self-serious. And I read this in 2 sessions. Like I couldn't even finish it. I read it and I was like, I gotta stop. And for me, digitally, the sign that I'm not enjoying a book is when I tap the screen to see how many pages are left.
I did it many times.
And I was doing that like every 3 pages. Yep. It's like, how many pages?
It was long.
And because it's a Black Label book, so digitally it was 47 pages, but there was a lot of double page spreads. So it was probably around 60 pages for 50 pages. Not 50, it was probably 55, 60. And I was just like, oh my God. And Christian Ward I like, but I don't think this was his finest work.
I don't
like the Aquaman design.
What was it he did before? He did an image book. Was it with Hickman? Something like that.
Christian Ward's done a lot of stuff.
Well,
let me look it up while you talk some more.
So there was a thing, but like I think that his storytelling and his acting are good. I hate the production of it, like the digital. It looks like computer artwork to me, and in a way that takes me like I think it does its job. I don't think it's bad, and so what I mean is like I don't like this style of digital coloring, these fuchsias and these. Those blur motion effects. Like I can see Photoshop effects on the page, and I don't want to. And again, I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that it's a bad thing, but it is not my taste at all. And so you combine that with this self-serious
thing. He did Odyssey
thing.
With Matt Fraction.
That's what it was. That's what I was thinking of. Which was probably also self-serious. But like this just reminded me. Have you ever been like at a party or a dinner with a person who just is like so wants to think that their opinions are much more interesting than they are and that they're deep, and it's just like it's Aquaman. It's a big fish story.
But which isn't to say you couldn't tell a story like that with Aquaman. This wasn't it.
No.
It just if you're ever going to tell a story about sort of the nature of the planet and water and what we're doing to it's through Aquaman, but this was not successful. Every character was just droning on and speaking in very ponderous, highfalutin caption boxes, and this is it's a Black Label book's out of continuity. So this is a world where I guess only Aquaman exists because the whole story is this the secret salvage mission. Something crashed into the ocean, and they think it's extraterrestrial, so they're all freaking out. It's going to be the first contact. So I was like, well, I guess this is a world where there's no Superman because they're all freaking out about the possibility of aliens. So that's fine. This is a Black Label book. It can be whatever kind of scenario they want it to be, but it just wasn't very interesting. So we spent way more time with this group of scientists who were under the sea waiting to find this object than we did with anything. Aquaman's probably in like 5 pages of the 55
And
or 60.
he's the movie version. Like he comes up onto sea and he works with the ships and then kind of goes back. He's the
although he has no tattoos, which is good.
No, but like in like not visually but thematically, he's the Momoan version.
I know, but like in the current book, he's got tattoos and everything.
Hey, I'm gonna give the book one. I'm gonna give a compliment. There's a bit where it's the first page of sequential art, and we're looking at a girl and she's holding a Raggedy Ann doll, and we zoom in and there's a reflection in the water, and then you close on her eye and the water causes the eye to be reflected sort of on the above and below, and then you turn into this big page straight of the idea that we have of what a black hole looks like now, and that is a really nice image. That's really nice. Pacing and composition and everything. It's just that it's surrounded by a script that's trying to be as self-important as that.
We call that graphic matching in the business.
Yeah, really nice.
I really did like the sequence in the middle where the monster attacks. I thought there was some good bits in there. I thought the thing where it's all like smoky and foggy, and then out of the smoke comes the tentacle that grabs the dude. I thought this was all well done. It was a great single-page image of the giant tentacle coming out of the water. Like I thought that sequence was. I was like, oh, something's actually fun is happening in this book,
right?
And it lasted like 5 pages, and then we were back to droning on about the nature of the sea and the
universe.
I mean there's a couple of good shots, like Aquaman swimming through. I thought page 37, 38, Aquaman fighting the beast those were good sequences.
I think that his composition, his storytelling, the energy and action that he brings to pages is really good. I can't stand, that tentacle that comes up. Like, look, there's all those like swirly things around it, and then there's the glow that comes off the gun. It just reminds me of when they didn't know how to color comic books digitally. Like, I want it to be painted, or I want it to look like it's painted. That's a production thing I don't like. Right. It's
a personal taste.
Yeah, totally. It just rubs me wrong. But like the art, I mean, I know that the underlying drawings, the composition, all that stuff, that's great. Like he's clearly got that working. But the finishing is not for me.
So let's rate Aquaman Andromeda Book 1 from Black Label DC Comics ratings out of 5. I'm giving it 2 stars.
I'm also giving it 2 stars. I think the structure...
Are you sticking with this?
No, because really it is all about, like, the underlying bones are actually fairly strong. The structure of the story is good. The finishing, which is the dialogue and the characterization and the tone, is awful. And the art's kind of the same way for me. The structure is good. Like, the storytelling is strong. The characters are definable. But the finishing of it is not attractive. So, like, they got a skeleton down and then just piled a bunch of stuff on it I don't like. I think.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah. It's really, your take on it is exactly the same as mine, which I think is telling.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can vote to add a book to the rundown. And if you give it the $5 or higher level, you get a superpower live on the show. Like Daniel Phillips. Daniel Phillips' power is that he can... I think I've used a similar version of this before, but with a slight twist. He can manifest cupcakes at any moment, any kind of cupcake you want. But it doesn't have to be for eating. He can also use them in an offensive capability, meaning he can start shooting cupcakes like a machine gun out of his hand. It's really just cupcakes, and they just hit guys in the face, and there's a splash noise. And
right. Do the cupcakes only come out in one, like, they're always going to be a cupcake? Like, they're not like trick arrows. Like, where... No,
it's always a cupcake. Yeah.
Like, he can't...
Yeah, you can also eat them. I mean, they're delicious, too.
Right. I mean, if you're going to be attacked... Really, it's a distraction. It'd be...
It's the indignity. It's the indignity of
it. Like, is there any way... Like, a cupcake would have to be moving really fast to do damage. Is he able to do that?
Yeah, they come out pretty fast. But it's not like it's not going to take your eye out. It's just it's almost like in Spaceballs when they jam the radar by throwing a big can of jam at the radar. Like it's gonna mess you up. You're not gonna be able to see because you got frosting.
And I think the further indignity is that it's like, oh, that was a good cupcake, and you're just
right. You're like I feel bad, but it's delicious. I'm licking it off my face.
Can he control the flavor and type of cupcake?
Yeah, he can make any kind he wants.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. But he can slow the rate.
So
it's not like any time he opens the tap, they just all come flying out, right?
No, you don't go to Daniel and be like, "Hey, can I get like a red velvet?" He's like, "Hold on," and you got to duck.
Tyler Owings. I feel like I left a letter out of that. Tyler Owings can make you feel pretty. Like if he points at you, gives you a little twiddly, like it makes you feel pretty. You don't know what's happening. Nice. Just all of a sudden you're like, well, really, I got it going on today.
Oh wow! These jeans are making my ass look great.
I mean, you know what? I don't know. I've really got my hair correct today. This is. I feel good. And that's going to tell you a lot about the person who was made to feel pretty. So maybe they're going to show some more self-confidence. They're going to start doing better at stuff. They're not going to be worrying about the things that were giving them anxiety. Or they're going to start to feel superior. They're going to start shooting endless videos of themselves doing shit that isn't interesting. Or, or they're going to try to help others. It could go all sorts of ways. It's how if you make somebody feel pretty, it could be a window to their soul.
I'm trying to find the patrons here. Yeah, it's Tyler. I think you're right.
Owings.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Owings.
Yeah.
Unless the name was put wrong into the spreadsheet.
That's possible, I guess. So, Tyler, if we did get your name wrong, let us know, and we will do an on-air correction.
God,
Tyler is Owings
so
me
big
something.
Now. It took forever to open.
Tyler is Owings me. Also, but we don't know. Maybe Tyler is Owings me. I don't know.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can become a patron like Daniel and Tyler and get superpower live on the show. Thanks for being patrons. What do you want to do, boss?
First one. Scott. From Portland. Scott. Scott's been thinking about this question since comics went up to $1.95. Tootski?
Why is Scott from Portland sound like...
Because I've been working on Matthew McConaughey a lot lately.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much you jerk off?
Okay, go ahead. Well, it's like... Whoa. It's like... did you listen to his audiobook? Because he does talk about that a lot in his book.
Yeah.
It's a great audiobook, by the way. If you want to work on your McConaughey, download Green Lights.
The problem I hear is you got to get the whistle. The whistle's just right, but it's hard.
It's amazing. It's
really?
Amazing.
My mom didn't like it.
Yeah. No, I'm saying if you want to get the voice down, he runs the gamut on it. It's she probably didn't like it because it's fucking weird, and he talks about masturbation a lot.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it.
That's funny because that's what his character did in The Wolf of Wall Street. That was his Alec Baldwin and Glengarry moment. Anyway, I'll read the question from Scott from Oregon. I've been thinking about this question since comics went up to $1.95. And because of inflation, people are seeing comic prices rise and coming up with hot takes about what that means. I've seen this story before, but I was curious, do you remember the first time you really noticed a big increase in the price of a comic? What did you think at the time? What would you tell the young comics reader who's experienced their first comics price increase?
It only goes up from here.
Yeah, it's never going back down.
I do. We talked about it. I've talked about it on the show before, but yes, I do remember exactly where I was when I first noticed the price of comics going up, and that was in junior high school. There was a store called Comics for Sale, which he named because it was easy to find in the phone book.
Good call.
It was like 3 blocks from our school, so me and my friends would go there a lot. We knew the guy pretty, he knew us, we knew him because we were there all the time. It was like probably less than 10 blocks from my house, so we were there a lot. And comics were $1, and then they went to $1.25.
Interesting.
So first of all, that's a 25% increase. That's a lot. It's a big increase.
Sure.
But no longer could you walk in with a $5 bill and walk out with 5 comics. Now you walked out with 4.
Right.
And so that was the first time I really noticed it.
Was there no tax on comics?
I don't think so. And then, and I've told this before also, there was a while where the comics were the same price as a token.
Right.
So you could ride the bus for the price of one comic or the subway. And so I remember once being in that store and wanting to buy a book and not having cash. And I said, "Can I give you a token?" And he went, "I guess. I got to go home."
Right.
So I was able to pay for a comic because the comic was $125 and a token was $125. So I gave him a New York City token for a comic.
It's nice. See, it's interesting.
But that was the first time I remember.
It's interesting for me is that
increase.
I remember the 75 cents to $1 increase. Because 75 cents, that was doable.
Right.
That was a candy bar and a half. By the way, I'm still stunned that like a Milky Way is over $1. I find that amazing. A Milky Way should be 60 cents tops. But that's where we are. Whatever. Yeah, it was 75 cents to $1.
I definitely remember paying that price, but I think probably when comics were 75 cents, I was still I definitely remember. I remember the moment we walked in the store and it had gone up. So I remember that more clearly than 75 cents. But I remember that happening.
So I would have been like 11, 12. That was the first time I read comics, which was only for a couple of years. And I had a paper route, so like that's how I paid for my comics. And 75 cents was. I always felt like, oh, this is a deal. Like this is a bargain. But then like the Amazing Spider-Man with Todd McFarlane, those were $1. But there was still a bunch of books that were 75
prestige
cents.
Books were more.
And then there was a couple that was like Punisher War Journal was $1.50. It had the thicker paper and the brighter colors, and I liked that because. But what are they? I mean, I remember $3 to $4. $3 to $4 was a big watershed moment, I think. And now as they start to get to $5,
I found this website. Ugh. Comicron has a timeline on comic prices, and so. Marvel Comics went from 75. There were 75 cents in 1988, 87 and 88, 86 to 88. They were 75
right,
cents.
That's what I'm talking about.
And they went up to $1 in 90.
Before that,
65 cents, 60 cents, 65 cents. They and then the $1 to 125 jump was 1991, 1992.
That's the boom.
So that was my last year of junior high school. So that would have been. It and then
goes up from there. When we were in college, when we all became friends and we were getting into comics like that, how much were they then? $2?
So our first year of college was 96. That was $2.50 a comic.
That sounds right.
And then we graduated there $2.95.
Yeah, and then they hung there for a while.
$2.95 lasted until 2004.
Yeah,
and then $2.99. And then
it's tough. First of all, I don't know what young comics reader has.
You know what? There was no incremental increase between $2.99 and $3.99. They just went up $1.
Right.
There wasn't. It didn't go to like $3.50 or $3.25. It was $2.99, $3.99.
I mean,
it's been $3.99 since 2012. It's been $3.99 for 10 years.
That's. I mean, relatively speaking, we're talking about this. That's pretty good. But I can tell you right now that if we're talking about inflation. Has it made it to the covers yet? I honestly haven't been paying attention to that part, which just makes me an asshole. But I know that in printing, it's a problem. Like every single aspect of printing is going up in price, and it's all doing it at separate times. And what I mean by that is, the printer supplies, the paper itself, which is getting harder and harder to source because what's happening is that all of the printers are trying to hoard as much paper as possible, while at the same time, certain paper manufacturers are going out of business. And so there's less paper to producers to go around, and it's a problem. So they'll shore up
I'm actually shocked that comics prices haven't gone up.
Yeah.
In the last
well, there
year.
is definitely a point, though, where you have to say, are people actually going to pay $6 for 20 pages of content? Like, there's only so far it can go. Like, something's going to have to give somewhere. So is it production? Is it like artists and writers make less? Is it overhead? There's, I don't understand. I do not. Publishers of comics, I do not envy the job that they're going to have to do because I really don't think it's all like greed on the part of the publishers. I don't. But they do have to.
No, the highest cost of making a comic is the people.
Yes.
It's the cost of the writer and the artist, and they should all make a wage,
Yes.
a living wage, and a wage that is commensurate to their talent, which is a lot.
But the cost of making all those books and shipping all those books is definitely going to take a hit. It's like it's got to give somewhere. You can't. I mean, comics are at some point going to be $7.50 an issue. That's absolutely going to happen. But I cannot imagine it.
I just bought 3 comics on Amazon. They were all $7.99. Yeah. While you're talking, so I just ran. I opened up my favorite website, the inflation calculator, and
Interesting. Yep.
I ran 125 in 1992. So that's how much. That was when the price increase happened. If the comics prices were just stuck to or went up at the same rate as inflation, we should be paying $250 for a comic right now. So the same 125 is worth $250 now, or at least last year.
Well, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind that
the
inflation calculator is not going to show is that the audience has gone from 1 million to 100,000.
Oh, sure. I'm just saying the price of a comic, if stuck to inflation, should be $250 instead of $399.
Like
there are other factors at play.
In terms of economies of scale, though, you are supporting 10 times the comic book audience that you used to be. So you know.
Oh, for sure. 1992, we're talking about Image and millions of comics being sold. Yeah. So, yeah.
And it used to be like a book would be on the bubble, if it dropped below 30,000 copies or something like that. Whereas, now 30,000 is a hit. So it's a.
In fact, 1992 was the year Image debuted. So that was the year people were buying 5 million copies of Wildcats and
they all had Porsches, and there was tons of money to go around. But now
Rob Liefeld had a private jet.
Image Comics, 5 to 10,000 copies of an issue. It's pretty successful.
Oh yeah.
And that's really the thing. The more that you want to be like, oh, why are they so expensive? It's like it's a bespoke item at this point. Like it's there's no economy of scale to it because not enough people buy them.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the memory I have is when I was, and partially it's because I was, spending my allowance or whatever money I was making doing the odd jobs, and so I was really like, it wasn't like I was going into stores as an 8-year-old with my dad and he was buying buying me a few comics. It was me taking money out of my own wallet that I had gotten and being like, what? 25 cents increase?
Scrounging for change, like looking everywhere I can, returning cans and bottles to try to get money. My kids will never have to do that. And I
remember specifically doing that with the Who's that I did that mini on them not recently, but it came out recently on our YouTube page. That the binder Who's Who. I remember seeing this comic store I went to, Westside Comics on 86th Street, having gotten some back issues that I didn't have, and so going home and like literally scrounging for change in the house to get the money together to go buy an issue. I remember going back 3 times in one day. It was 5 blocks away from my house. It wasn't a big deal, but like going to the store, buying one, going home, finding some more change, scrounging that together, going back and buying another one, going home, looking in the couch cushions and things, finding another, however much.
Is that when you got in trouble?
No, that was not. Look, it's free change. It's just around the house.
Right. Yeah. So that's all change. Like you want to talk about why kids don't read comics anymore? Like there's no
because you can't scrounge.
You can't scrounge for one thing, but like it's so much easier to play Game Pass. I mean, like you had to work to be entertained, and yeah, that's great.
Scott H from Portland, thanks for writing in. Contact@ifanboy.com is where you can write in. Also, if you want to write it for our media split, we're going to do, I think, a mailbag episode in July. So if we've got a bunch of good emails, but if you want to get an email in from Media Explode for our July mailbag, I think we're going to do it early on in the month because July is just a terrible shit show in terms of scheduling. But if you want to get your Media Explode question in, contact@fanboy.com is also the place to do it. Let's talk about other shows we have out right now. Superman for All Seasons is our current Booksplode episode. It's out on the feed right behind this show. Josh and I and our special guest Paul Montgomery talked about the Jeff Loeb Tim Sale Classic. Had a lot of fun. It was a good show. It's right behind the show. Check it out. If you haven't read that book, read it first. It's a great book. It'll make you feel all the feelings about Superman, and it was a good discussion. As I said earlier, we're going to have a Media Explode this month. We're back over the threshold. It's going to be coming out not next week, but the week after. And we're going to talk about several things, but I think we're also going to talk about Top Gun, at least in some form. We haven't really figured it out yet. only three of us are going to be able to see it, so we're really going to have that conversation. Not a full-blown one, but we'll have one. In between those shows, we'll have the Animation Brain Trust talking about the new release, DC Showcase Constantine, the House of Mystery. So that's out next week, so you'll look for that. We had Booksplode, Animation Review, Mediasplode, and then the following week, in the last week of the month, we should have Talksplode.
Yeah, there's a little. I've got a person that I'm excited to talk to. A little tricky. They're on the other side of the world. It isn't Tom Taylor. Sorry, I gotta work that out. But we should be good to go with one.
And our June hangout. If you are a patron, our monthly patron hangout is going to be next weekend, June 18th. Or this coming weekend, June 18th. So we'll be doing that, and it's a busy time. The summer's a busy time. It's always hard to schedule stuff, and we're doing our best. So hopefully all those shows come out when they're supposed to.
Connor, all the times are busy. All of them.
I know, but summer's especially
You can
busy.
find our shows over at iFanboy.com, as well as a archive of the years of comic book writing from all of the folks who are on our staff, some who come back to the show every once in a while, and some who never leave, Ryan. You can find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. Follow at iFanboy.
Keep changing the locks. He keeps finding his
I
way
checked
in.
with Ryan, like, recently. I was like, hey, you know the thing where I pick on you? Like, if that's ever really bothering you, please let me know, because it is a bit. But you know me, I'm like, I don't want to make anyone unhappy. But he said it's fun. I said, okay, little brother, get back to it. You can find out what the pick of the week is when the show comes out by following at iFanboy on Twitter and at iFanboy Comics on Instagram. Follow us.
Go get your shine box.
Exactly. Mother. Yeah.
I almost watched it last night. I was by myself for a couple hours. I had nothing to do, and I was like, should I watch Goodfellas?
You know what the answer to that is.
But I didn't. I watched The Big Lebowski instead, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, no, great flick.
I had seen that in like 15 years, and I was like, oh, this is amazing.
It's a cult movie that actually deserves it. C.S. Kilpatrick on Instagram. Jay Flanagan on Instagram.
I had, in between the last time I saw it, I've read all of Raymond Chandler's novels, so I think it heightened the enjoyment of it. That I was like, I don't think I realized how much of it before. Like, it was for me, it was like, oh, it was a funny stoner thing, but now it's like, oh, this is like them doing L.A. Noir, but with a stoner character in the middle of it. And I was like, oh man, this is terrific.
I agree with you.
Sorry.
C.S. Kilpatrick and Jay Flanagan on Instagram. Our YouTube page is youtube.com/ you guessed it, iFanboy. Don't leave you guessed it in there. You can keep up to date on the old video show re-uploads. Full-length shows are all there, so we're just down to the minis. We're getting down to it. If you were wondering what we thought...
July 14th is the last upload for the minis, so we're like a month away.
If you're wondering what we thought of Echo number 6, which was the pick of the week, first of all, I can't believe that was that long ago. From Terry Moore, that's there. And then Ron is talking about Age of the Century number 1. And I like sort of scrolled over it, and I was like, whew, I forgot about this stuff.
Like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to watch it, know why, but why?
They're still trying to make Century happen. Right until Matt Rosenberg came out, like, what if we cut that fucker in half? And I have that page. I have that page on my wall. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Oh, it's my turn. If you like the show, please consider leaving a review or star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps our show, helps people find the show. And that's a thing you can do for any podcast you listen to, not just ours. It really is a nice gesture. If you can't support the show in other ways, just helping people find the show is a good way to give back. And even better than that, it's word of mouth. We got a note last week. In our last week's show, we talked about the book club that was reading Spawn. And we told him on the show, hey, mention to your book club about the show. And he said, oh, I did. And they're kind of annoyed by my talking about it, but they all listened to the segment and enjoyed it. So if you have a book club,
the abusive book club,
feel free to let them know that you enjoy the show. We do appreciate that. Hey, that's it. We're done.
Yeah, that's a long show.
I have a phone call with my lawyers I have to get to.
You son of a bitch.
So.
All right. For more on eugenics, come back next week.
If there's a next time. Yeah. If there's a next time. Until then, I'm Connor.
I'm Josh. Let me check your head bumps out.